This is a digital video of the Duplo 1060 tower. This is video 2 and are getting your 1060 tower series. This is LCE graphics. You can reach us on the web at lcegraphics.com. We'll begin with the touch screen and the main screen. Your buttons are up and the count will count up to 100, or down and it will count down from 100. These are your speed controls. You can increase the speed or decrease the speed within the parameters of what you're feeding into. You cannot go over certain numbers for certain attachments. Stackers can only take 3100, booklet makers can only take 3600 and 4200. It all depends on what you're feeding into as to how fast you can go. We'll switch to the mode screen. Begin with block. Block mode, as like currently it's a quarter. That would be splitting the two towers into an equal quarter for each. I can switch back to half mode, which would give me two 10-bin collators, or all, which is a 120-bin collator. The change features are auto change, and it will, as soon as one bin empties out, it will immediately switch to the next block, which would go in this order, and it would do it on its own. If you were to push the change, it won't do it on its own. As soon as a bin empties out, you have to change it yourself, which you would have to come back over to modes, back into block option, and change it yourself. We're going to move over to cover inserter, and cover inserter, what that would do is in cover insert mode, what you would do is, if you were to have an NCR job to do, and you were going to run 150 and then insert a slip sheet, you could set that. You could set the quantity right here. By hitting the program, you would set where it would go. With the way this is set up, is it will have tower A do the feeding and tower B would enter the sheet, and then you can set how the slip sheet's going to be added. Is it going to be added just strictly to the top, or no slip sheet, adding it into it, or a double slip sheet? That would be a sheet on the bottom and a sheet on the top. What it would do is it would feed two at a time, which would give you one for the bottom and one for the top, and then you would set it that way. We're going to go into setting quantity by say 150. You're going to, that means it'll feed 150 of the sets, and then it will add the slip sheet one at a time. We're going to move over to your direction, which could be set this way. And that will turn both towers in the direction for a rear stacker. They would exit out to the rear. Or you could, and then when you were done with that, you would have to go, after you've set this option, this tower is no longer in control. You have to go to the rear tower, which is now in control because everything exits through it, making it the first tower on the system. I cannot exit right now, as you can see, and I have no control over the system. I still have control over where I go, but I have no control over the system now. Everything has to go to tower 2. Once I'm in tower 2, I can control a set. I can input a value. If I wanted to do 150, I could run 150 out into the rear exit stacker, and then I could just completely take control with this tower like this. We're gonna I'm gonna switch this out, and I'm gonna show you how to separate the two towers, and that would be as simple as of that right there. Now I have one tower exiting to the right, stacking NCR or any other stacking job you may need to do, and while my other tower is now back in control of itself, and I can run booklets out through the booklet maker. Or if I had another stacker on that side, I could stack in both directions. But once you turn, you now have control of this tower again. And then when I turn it again, I now lose control of my tower again, because my tower is no longer the main tower, it's now an add. So I have control back over here again. We're going to move to the options, and I'm going to go through all of these. The overlap is how far apart the set is spread out. From sheet 1 to sheet 10, or however your number is, it's going to spread it or tighten it up. If you're having a shingling issue where it's coming in too tight or it's coming in too far apart, you can adjust. This would spread them out for more shingle. That's the maximum. This would decrease them for less. If you're having a problem with all the sheets getting into the booklet maker in an even stack, you would shorten it. If they're making too much of a hill, too much of a bump, you would spread it out. If your thicker booklets, if you're going to run 20 signatures, you would spread the system out so that it's not coming in at such a large amount at once, trying to get through the rollers. The tech position is on the non-op side. The reason you can change this, and the benefit to this, is if you have a very dark patch or a header on a sheet, you may need to change this position because it simply will not read past that ink. If you have like a solid black header on a sheet, you may have to change. You may have to move the position so that it could still read the pages that are coming in and out without automatically declaring a double. The text sensitivity. Right now it's set to a 50% variance, up to 50% of the original read value before it says that it's a double. If it read the value at 85, it would take over 135 of value to cause a double. Also with the miss, if your first sheet was really dark and the rest of your sheets aren't, it would take down to a 35, which is 50 minus the 85, to detect a miss. That's helpful. You would use it in cases where you have different varying stock. You have maybe the image wasn't perfect every single time, especially coming off of your digital book or your digital printers. You could also lighten this up. If you're running very thin stock and it's not catching a double fast enough, or in the detect position because you can't change to the non-op side, there's nothing there and it's a thin stock, you may have to lighten up to catch the double that's coming through. What that'll do is go all the way down to 14%. Anything over 14% of the original value will immediately signal a double or a miss. The feed clutch timing is how fast the clutches are going to react based upon the system's trigger for the next. This is going to be based upon when the signal comes from the booklet maker or the stacker, how quickly it will react. And then they all turn off at the exact same time, which is how fast they react based upon the signal, which could actually lengthen the amount of time that the clutch stays engaged. Manual stitching. If I were to turn manual stitching on, I now turn on the booklet maker, and I can feed to the LUL, which is what you've seen on our previous video. I can begin feeding through here. It'll take them as fast as I input them. helpful if you have something that's coming off of a digital press. It's also helpful if you were having a doubles issue for a period of time and you kept dropping doubles. You could remove the sheet instead of having to separate the entire set back into the collator. You could just remove the extra sheet and feed it through the system without having the excess work. The DC 8000 ST stacker is for the rear exit stacker. You can turn it on or off, and then you have offset or straight stacking. Offset would of course offset the stack, and straight would of course do straight stacking. Then your other option is the hand marrying. If you were to have a cover you wanted to feed in that's just not going to feed through the system, or if it were to feed through the system it may damage the cover, you would go to set 1, you would turn it on, you would start the system, and you can now feed the set with the LUL. Every time you push it down, it will feed the inside of the booklet and meet it with the cover and continue on. You could feasibly add more. I'm going to go ahead and set this up to show you how that works. And we're going to start. Hand marrying 1, hand marrying on. I'm going to go back to main. I'm going to start. What's going to happen now, I'm going to, you of course have to wait for the collator to get ready. And now every time I put one in, we're taking it into the booklet maker. Complete a set. And that's how you control the hand marrying. The option 2 on hand marrying, and it's going to run non-stop. Your operator has to keep up with the booklet maker, not the booklet maker keep up with your operator. Now on the timing is how fast after you touch the switch inside of the LUL that the set comes down. If you're not real familiar with the system or you're new to it, you could use that to kind of help yourself get more used to it. You also use it for aligning. In case the cover is going too far or not far enough, you can use it to adjust that distance there. And less timing will actually allow you to get a little more comfortable with it before trying to get going. We're going to move to the next section of this. Eject to the side when reset. That's going to be either it's going to drop down into the reject tray, or it's going to continue on into the rest of the system, which would be the booklet maker, or so on and so on. And if you were running a stacker, allowing it to continue on would be okay. Also, if you were running a booklet run and it was very limited, you may want to just run it through the booklet maker instead of having a reject to the bottom. That's personal preference. I prefer to send it straight to the... Yeah, we send them all to the reject tray. We always prefer to send them down there. That way we can count and look at the system or the set and make sure nothing's turned around backwards and nothing gets, you know, messed up before we're able to run the set. Buzzer sounds on and off. It's exactly what it says. The buzzer's going to sound on and off based upon if you have an error or something, it'll turn it on and off. Counter repeated on, we turn them all on. Again, that's preference. If we're running 100 at a time or 500 at a time, we want to keep doing that. It kind of helps us batch out what's happening. We know that we're getting exactly 500 every time that it goes off. For batching purposes, it's helpful. You don't need it. You can use it. It's up to you, your preference. Conveyance jam detection. This would be used if you were having a problem with a sensor that had gone bad and you just don't have time to wait for the part to come in. You could turn it off and then it's going to ignore the bad sensor. Probably not a good idea to run it with it off. If you do have a jam, you do want the system to shut down immediately and not let it damage anything. So we of course have them all on and all working. We ship them, but if it was an emergency or you had to get the set out, you had to get the booklet done, you could turn it off. Stop at paper feed error set. We set them to 2. Static can always cause a double, no matter how well set the system is. One double will just drop down to the catch tray, the reject tray, and then the system will continue on and won't shut everything down. If you set it to 1, every time it has an error, it will immediately stop. It'll drop to the reject tray, and then everything stops. 2 just gives you that advantage. If it's only a static issue or a little bit of ink was wet or something, you can always get past that one and then continue on. These are the separators. We set all of ours to 1 and then make the individual adjustments based upon what each bin needs. A cover stock may need more. We're going to continue this section on the next video. Any questions? Please feel free to call. Thank you.